insights on 3 to 5 topics that you'd like to help inform the community through future engagement meetings, and how will informing our community on said topics will inform student outcomes. So if you scroll down just a little bit more, you'll see my contributions, and I'll share them as an example. When I think about the topics that may be valuable and helpful or that I'd like to prioritize, include providing information and feedback about spending priorities, giving the recent discussions, potential additional funds for the district for education in general, but certainly impact the district, and the way that it will inform our community, how will it inform student outcomes specifically. You know, the significant portion of our budget, over 80%, is allocated to staff who support students, right? So, and the second one that I have here is information about existing accountability metrics for the district, and potentially I'd add things that you know, I think it's important not only to account for what's existing in terms of accountability, what we have, but also what may be needed, what our community may seek. So seeking feedback on said accountability, knowing that the accountability system is so complex and so there are lots of layers to the accountability system, that's involving this entire state, and we control some pieces of it, but certainly, you know, often things just report out on it and borrow it from our goals. And so along those lines, you know, when it comes to informing the public on accountability measures that we already have, that includes ensuring from the student outcomes perspective, it consists of for me ensuring that we're measuring the right things that we have control over to help determine student success. And then the third item that I have on here as an example, and that is really my contribution for this particular activity. You know, when it comes to our organization's mission and vision, what do we want to be true for our school system? So really reevaluating the mission and vision of our organization. Again, refreshing these items and these statements will allow us to anchor ourselves in actions specific to student outcomes in the future. So you know, and this is part of a larger conversation, colleagues, again, the community engagement discussion that we had last month during the work session was a starter to help with the desire for us to move forward in re-engaging our community through community engagement for trustees. We are a part of our team, and I think it's important to, as I'm mapping this out and preparing for you to share your contributions, we're a team with a superintendent. And we will benefit tremendously as a group to do things together. And so my intent in developing a list that we all can start to determine what themes exist for us as a group, as a collective, that perhaps we can turn these into, I'll work with the superintendent directly to ensure that we have some structure to these. Like our goal is as board of trustees to develop the goals, the mission, and not be be mindful of our role that's not operational day to day. So we're not, we ask the superintendent for broadly what we're seeking for in this particular engagement, and it really is part of a larger conversation when it comes to the way that the information that we'd like our community to have. Again, part of community engagement and the last item that we had last month discussed through the research that information is the first level of community engagement, and you have to start there. So I see a member in the queue. I'm going to turn it over to that member, and I'm hoping to capture while you're speaking. I'm hoping to capture general themes. If I miss something, please let me know. Appreciate that. So, Trustee Guzman.
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. I appreciated the email asking for topics because I was unable to be at the last meeting. So I asked my community what they wanted to hear. And their number one topic at the high school level, and only at the high school level, I made sure that I asked at the different levels, had to do with grading. They would like to be able to have a conversation with me, or they feel that all parents, about their student outcomes. They understand that the current grading system has allowed for additional graduation and for students to be able to have mastery and be able to graduate. But they also feel that there is a lack of challenge, and they would like to express how they would like to be involved in that conversation for their child. And so that was their number one. At the elementary level, they would like to understand funding structures, which I was very glad that you had feedback about spending priorities, because that is something that they would like to understand a little better, why some elementary schools have more money than others, and the priorities based on that. The last thing that I had, because you asked for 3 to 5, had to do with curriculum and the reasoning behind us not having ELA curriculum, which I think is important to explain that the Department of Ed is very much involved in that, and they hold us back from being able to provide what their students need in the classroom when they don't adopt curriculum on time. And so I feel like that would be very important for them to understand, because they're being asked to provide resources within the classroom because their teachers are creating their own curriculum because we don't have the proper adopted curriculum. And personally, I would like to have a community meeting about Tier 1 instruction so that families understand that rich instruction that is coming to their child. I feel that that's really great. I've heard really positive feedback from my principals about it. And so I would like to make sure that our community is.
Right, Trustee Guzman, in summary, I heard you say that we have, there is a desire to hear more about the policies, specifically for grading, and its benefits and challenges. I heard that impact on student outcomes, specifically when it comes to grading and rigor, maybe. Grading. With the magic of Google Docs. Things as we go along. So the second one is spending priorities, which is something that I'm also interested in as well. We have a very specific interest in, maybe differences between, more specifically with respect to elementary, but maybe why some have more than others in specific communities, perhaps. Maybe like the funding structure, something along those lines. I did not capture how that particular item, maybe I can borrow my piece around funding and how it's impacting student outcomes related to the majority of our budget is dedicated to staff. And do you want to elaborate on that? And we come up here. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, it has to do with teachers providing their own curriculum, their own supplemental materials within the classroom, and why schools can't provide those. We've had a deep discussion about that. We've even spoke about it on the dais that this probably should not be occurring. And so I feel like having that conversation on the dais is one thing. Having that conversation within the community and letting them know that the funding is there for them is different.
General awareness of maybe the funding structure and how it impacts students.
That's correct.
Capture that. And then this third item, you mentioned ELA curriculum, challenges of delayed curriculum from the state. So maybe the that impact on student outcome have to do with? From degree, well, definitely student outcomes, right? There's, the curriculum is not updated, that it impacts the entire workforce. Or specifically students and the consistencies that we may be missing as a result of.
Once we have a shared ELA curriculum, a student who might be transient can go from one elementary school or middle school to another, and they would recognize that ELA curriculum more so than they currently do. Because our adopted ELA curriculum that we have is old. But I feel like the tier 1 instructional materials are taking that that control back for educators so that they can utilize it and be able to provide that that the rich knowledge. I witnessed it. It's very it's really a great curriculum for the kids, and it allows them to really thrive. The educators feel more empowered with it. And so I feel like it needs to be brought up more so than what has occurred in them. Because it's new, the tier 1 instruction is new for them.
Are you open to, what I'm hearing you say is less about being open, but maybe just help me out here. What I'm hearing you say is just what structures exist and are in place, maybe how they ultimately benefit students in the classroom. Sheila, I don't know.
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your contributions. Appreciate that. Trustee Brooks, you're next in the queue.
Thank you, Madam President. My first one would be how laws, regulations, or policies are created and who creates them. I think it's important that people understand where their advocacy will be most effective, and a lot of these laws, regulations, and policies have a direct impact on the classroom by removing the focus of the classroom teacher to things that maybe they didn't sign up for, that they wouldn't necessarily do on their own. My second one is state accountability metrics, because I think that it would help us develop a shared common language, and I don't think you can change things if you don't understand them. My last one is who to contact to resolve issues, because I think one of the tenets of this organization should be a customer service model, and the more people are shifted away from their responsibilities and they're not able to focus on their duties, staff and board members, the less likely they are to focus on things that are going to get us to good enough.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. Can you say that last particular piece when it comes to who to resolve, who to contact to resolve issues or challenges?
That is a complaint that we hear pretty consistently with communication in the organization. So a lot of things bubble up to the board level because people don't know where they should go to direct their concerns and have their concerns addressed. So in order to address their concerns, they should know when it reaches a board level versus where they should go to their principal and what the chain of command should be.
So by helping our community understand who resolves what issues, allows us to stay focused on business of the board, vision of the board, direction of the board. Right. Okay. Right, who's next in the queue? Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll make the second part of this really easy for you because I know you're working hard to take the notes here. I had about like 6 or 7, but thankfully Trustee Brooks and Trustee Guzman have covered a couple of them. The ones that they covered had to do with on Trustee Brooks, how laws and policies are created, because I think there's a lot of information on that needs to go out, and also with Trustee Guzman with the curriculum having to do with ELA. Grading, yes, I think that's been covered. So I want to make a kind of like a blanket statement here that everything that I am asking for here, or that I have, this is a combination of myself and asking the community, but informing our community in a transparent manner on any topic involving their children eventually supports student outcomes. So I'll start out with the first example here, having to do with school safety, which has been an ongoing concern. And that would include the policies having to do with our CCSD police policy training. All of that has to be broken down in such a way that the community understands where we're coming from, what parameters that the board operates within, and what we have the authority to do and what we do not have the authority to do. That'd be the first one. The second one would be mental health support and follow-up. A lot of the questions, the inquiries that I get, where I then have to refer to appropriate staff because it's not under my authority, has to do with that we have several mental health, should we say, measures and programs that I think are doing a good job as far as surveys and identifying. And I think Deputy Superintendent Brenda Larson-Mitchell said, finding our red flags and being able to, starting point. But I do get a lot of complaints from the community having to do with then there's not enough support or follow-up, or they don't know where to go for that support or follow-up. So that's another one right there. On having to do with the federal funds commitment, I'm still getting a lot of questions that have to do with, now that a lot of that has been allocated, I have answered a lot of questions having to do with when those funds have to be spent. So the main question I'm getting out of that, which I think would be good for a community meeting, would be how are those programs going to be sustained? If we have this that is going on, we like it, we think the district is doing a good job. What is the sustainability there and how is that going to happen? Let me see if I missed anything. I think the other ones were covered on the one having to do that with Trustee Brooks, if you don't mind me overlapping a little bit so that we won't repeat ourselves on who to contact to resolve issues. That's another big one with us too. And sometimes people are really confused if they have already contacted their principal. The principal's already contacted the regional, and then it lands in our laps. Again, we do not have the authority to decide on that. So I agree with that suggestion. But again, instead of going specifically on how that's going to affect student outcomes, all of these affect student outcomes. Because if a student does not feel safe in school, if a student is not feeling emotionally stable and mentally healthy, they cannot learn. And I just think that it all goes into the global outlook of looking at our students as whole people, as whole students, and not just as data points. And I think we have a lot of good programs in the district. We just need to kind of break them down for our community, because right now they feel like they're not getting the information that they need to have. You drink of water after that.
Thank you, Trustee Cavasso. So I hear you say that there's some overlap that exists with existing members who have already shared
Yes.
some other pieces. Thank you for that. I heard some of your comments around funding, accountability metrics, funding, curriculum, excuse me, who to contact for what.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt, Madam President, but the main ones that I had at the top three were the school safety, including information where community would not feel that information that is not, shall we say, we cannot reveal information as confidential in ongoing investigations, but we can basically give information if there's something going on that is not embargoed information. No, that's information that for the sake of the investigation, we are not able to reveal, but that at least we can give the community an update, and also the mental health and support follow-up. That's a huge one in my East Las Vegas community. They just don't feel like sometimes there's a lot of follow-up.
I wonder if that is, as I'm hearing you talk about this, and some of these pieces specifically around the people, right, with the bandwidth that exists within the district. I wonder if some of those also could be covered during the conversation related to the funding within our system, right? You talked about some of the challenges that exist, like not having enough follow-up or support in the mental health area. I think that was the main one I think that I heard that from, like, hey, or even just updates. Some of these pieces have to do with communication, right? That are operational in nature to some degree with the district, but from the board's perspective, like, well, what is causing that, right? From a systems perspective, what is causing that? Is it, you know, that we have the resources and just are not spending them, which we, you know, that I would not make that statement as an accurate statement. That is an inaccurate statement, especially when there's 14 people in the communications department that do government relations, you know, PR, marketing, etc. So, you know, I'm just, help me out here, just make sure that I'm on the right track.
Sure. I think it would be inaccurate to say that, that we are not doing the work of trying to, I think it's more, let me break it down. It's more not the what, how to refer to this, like I said, like I'll use mental health as an example. We have some great systems in place to identify our kids that are having issues. But then again, on the follow-up, it's again, and I personally do not like to use the term that we are educating our community or our constituents, because just to me personally, it feels like we're talking down to them, like we're being condescending. I prefer to use the term that we are informing them and giving them the resources. And then if they have the resources, they can, you know, come to the appropriate staff, the appropriate resources. And then if they have issues still, say it's something that's site-based, they can go to the appropriate administrator and ask for help there. So when you say that we do have 14 people here, or we might have 10 people here, or 6 people here, that's all well and good, but if those people are not getting that information out to our community, I have to agree with Trustee Guzman. I had someone say, we just want to have a dialogue with you. We can't, you know, we know that you are very much restricted, that we obviously cannot get into a dialogue with public commenters. See, I don't know, is our board counsel, I don't want to say something that's incorrect here. Shion?
Forgive me, I'm sorry, that may, you know, was provided to me. Counsel, you're on the line.
On the line?
I am.
Okay, I just, if I say something that's incorrect, I want her to correct me. We are not allowed to have dialogues, but when we have a public commenter that states something, we are able to make a declarative statement. We are not allowed to get into a dialogue. So basically, I would like to end there before going into kind of.
Based on public comment,
I beg your pardon?
it depends on whether or not the comment is, whether or not the topic is noticed in the agenda clearly enough to allow for discussion. Not that it's not allowed, it depends on whether or not the topic is noticed enough for discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, counsel. I also want to acknowledge that I believe Trustee Williams is on the line.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, very good. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I hope that you can also see like what I'm putting down here in terms of looking at as pieces. Again, clear concern about schools, general school safety policies and procedures, like in our role as trustees, you know, in developing policies, procedures, vision for the district, goals for the district, informing the community, right, around what exists around policies perhaps related to school safety. I heard you say mental health support and follow up, although I'm trying to shake that out a little bit, because I hear your concern maybe more specifically about the follow up that takes place. Maybe that's more of the concern.
Yes, that in other words, informing, let's say that there is someone who is like a student, unfortunately, is maybe flagged that there is some suicidal ideation. And so we do have resources, excellent resources in our district that then follow up with that with our various programs. But then I hear from constituents that then there is no follow-up, whether it's a private provider. And I hear this as a private mental health professional, and I will get referrals, and I'll say sometimes, you know, have you already tried this, this, and this within the district before you're coming to me? So I'm just saying that it's more like informational. And also on school safety, I think on there, I think I would really like to have the word transparency specifically added for that one.
So more information on what resources exist within the district, specifically around mental health.
Around follow-up. Because the foundational programs, I believe, are working pretty well.
And, I thank you for sharing some of the concerns that you've had around this particular item. I want to make sure that I'm confident you're already doing this. If there are specific concerns, that you share those with the superintendent, because we are not, upset that you are on the ground. Actually, this is your field, this area of work, right? That would just thank you in advance for correcting those when there are those specific issues that you feel like there are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. You mentioned, and forgive me, I want to go back to school safety. You said transparency, right?
Yes.
Do you want to say more about that?
Yes, on the transparency, just basically making it clear that sometimes we are not hiding information, but it's simply that we cannot reveal information at a particular time. But that we are giving updates, as opposed to that if something happens at a particular school, the parents and community receive no information. They don't get any information at all. And I think that the parents and constituents, the educators, they deserve to have some kind of update information as allowed within the parameters. So what I'm trying to make clear here is I'm not advocating for revealing confidential information.
I hear you, absolutely. And then when I also heard you say is just generally you had a blanket statement around how each of these items impact student outcomes. You mentioned that all of these impact student outcomes just because they involve students.
Because they involve the student's ability to learn and to be educated in an environment that is safe and emotionally healthy. And I'm cheating here a little bit, and I don't know if Dr. Barton is watching, but I'm cheating a little bit and stealing a little bit from some of his presentations of where he has made that point consistently, that if we do not have that whole child approach, that our children cannot learn.
Thank you for those pieces. Did I capture what so forgive me, I need to back this up.
Yes, Eli?
Come back in here.
Microphone. The only other thing that I had mentioned was on the transparency policy, school safety, that, and I'll tread carefully here, but I'll just say law enforcement within the district, they would like to have more transparency and more information about that.
I'll leave that there. Thank you. Trustee Navas, appreciate insight. Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, President. As I'm listening to all this, I know I go back to one of the biggest issues that I heard a lot through the past year. And I don't really know how to word it, because I don't want it to sound not the way I want it to sound, but all I think about is possibly having more of a conversation, listening session of accountability. And when it comes to board members, when it comes to operations, and possibly when it comes to parents. And I think about that because sometimes I know of some folks that forget to do things like update their information with the school once they move, update emails, update phone numbers. And I think that's very critical when it comes to following up, when it comes to learning about the programs the districts are doing. So some type of kind of having a conversation of roles, like what parents can do as well, so they're up to date, Another thought that I had was a workshop in a meeting typical situation, and I know that some of our staff members are working on it already, but possible alternative ways to learn at home. If I always think back to when I was a younger child and I was listening to a rap song, but it was the multiplications from 1 to 10, and that's how I learned my multiplications, but things, maybe just a day that we can have those type of resources specifically, because it's not a blanket thing the way that our students learn. And I know we're trying, but I know there's also other ways that can be completely different. than what we're talking about. And ditto to what all my colleagues said.
I want to play that back to you.
Okay.
So I hear you saying that there are a lot of resources that our families have access to. You know, are those, one thing I hear you saying is that we would, or maybe our families would benefit from learning more about the resources that exist within the district. To specifically, mention resources, I'm stuck on the word resources, we have very specific resources, and you also talked about supporting support, helping families know what other ways exist to with their students at home learn, aside from, you know, being paper and pen, everything else. But yes, there's lots of this to learning, giving parents tools or knowledge or skills.
But I definitely want to add, you know,
Take your time, we've done.
I don't want to see the parent role, right? But if the parent is also not supporting, and they're not doing their due diligence of communicating with the school or communicating back to the teachers, which I know is a big problem that I've heard, is that teachers cannot even get in touch with their parents. So how can we word that?
Earlier, did you say something about like, infinite campus platforms, like what resource, like the tools that are available to parents? Maybe we. No, I'm with you. I want you to know I'm with you. And
That's
this
what
trend
the
like,
wording that I was stuck on.
no, we don't have to get the wording right, but the intention, right? What is the intention? I hear you saying for, not saying parent engagement, but finding ways to communicate. Well, and then thinking about our role, right, as trustees, we have a responsibility as a vision, the mission of the organization. And these are things that we can share with the superintendent, say, hey, you're in the middle of, he and his team are just had a really successful parent engagement conference at Cimarron Memorial, to your district. I know that this is just the beginning of these workshops, and in these workshops they had a variety of different parent engagements, sessions, and adult specific sessions or that are parent only, or the technical term again there, but these are starting to happen, and you know that your feedback is important and helpful, and I'm confident the superintendent will take that into consideration as developing these pieces. But yeah, anything else on that particular end when it comes to engaging with families broadly, maybe not just parents, right?
Yes, for audience, everyone. Believe it. Engagement was a good word to throw in there.
All right. Thank you. Lisa, and grateful for your insight, colleagues, and trustees Moore. Thank you for helping me with this particular piece. I want to make sure that I'm capturing everyone's insight correctly. I know we have Trustee Williams on the phone, and I'll turn to her in a minute. However, you know, this is the start of a conversation. I see, and I'll let Trustee Williams go next. But Trustee Williams, can you unmute yourself and share a couple of insights if you'd like us to consider as well?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I think everyone's got some really good suggestions. I think I would just caution everybody to be careful about the language when it comes to how we talk to parents and the community, because we are not the parents of most of these students. I know that we have students in the school system, so you know you got to be careful and you got to dance that line sometimes, because if you tell parents what they absolutely have to do, some I guess would probably take offense to that, and so you just have to be. I would just say be careful as we go through this event, that we are acknowledging that we're just suggesting ideas to parents, we're being available to parents, not telling them how to parent, because I think that's where we can get into a really sticky situation. So that would be my only input.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Williams. I appreciate your insight about sensitivity to language. Thank you for that feedback. Several colleagues have already pointed that out, and also the you know, the notion of suggestions versus like how to do something, right? Yeah. Definitely need to get that muscle really strong as a board, and to the point of trustee Brooks, who talked about like having common language. That's an example of common language that we can all, that I certainly would look forward to developing with all of you. Great, colleagues, from this feedback that we have here, just looking at this document, we have some high level, sounds like there's some consensus, general consensus, all of this one action item. My intention today was to gain insight from all of you in terms of some key engagement items that sessions that we potentially have this year. There's a lot of work to do for sure, but I would love to be able to get to all of these this year. However, we're going to have to prioritize them. I think that some of these fold into each other very nicely. The way that I see this moving is that I'm going to take this feedback and work with the superintendent to share overall themes of community engagement topics, and more specifically, help make sure that they're aligned to our role, our vision of the district, that they're strategic in nature, right, that will help us move our district forward and address some of concerns that have been lingering for a little bit. It sounds like some maybe concerns, so maybe more opportunities to learn more about the structure of our education system. My intention is for this to be a collaborative effort with the board of trustees and the superintendent, and that we really have this is a starting point. This is a starting point. I want to point that out. This is a starting point, and I hope to come back to you at the next work session in April with more updates. My expectation is that all members will be invited to sessions. Again, I need to flesh that out in terms of topics and maybe by areas of interest based off of what you've already shared here today. But given that this will be something that is planned with the superintendent, you know, we won't be, we have some flexibility here when it comes to like how we'll seek the support of the superintendent and the staff, and ensuring that we have like accurate information that's presented to either superintendent / his staff. So, you know, I'm not the expert in all the resources that our parents have access to. We likely will solicit the superintendent's support to have what his team present on all of the available resources, for example. This one. Trustee Cavazos, I see your name in the queue. Come on in.
Thank you, Madam President. I just had a quick question, two-part question. First of all, I want to make sure that our colleague, trustee Bustamante Adams, who's not able to be here today, will she still be allowed to give some input on this?
I want to make sure she's not on the line. Just, I hope that she would jump in if she is. Okay. Yes, and she shared some general themes with me, and they have been incorporated already in Daisy's product.
And the second part was, since this is the second work session in a row that, you know, we've had this, so thank you for the opportunity tonight for input. Does this mean that we're not going to be talking tonight? It doesn't have to be tonight, but at what point are we going to be talking about the structure of the community meetings and whether we're going to go ahead and we've talked about as far as having like shared community meetings, like say 2 or 3 trustees instead of just like one person at a time having community meetings. Are we not going to be discussing that, or is that something that we should be able to do input? Because waiting a whole other month when we have a community that is basically screaming for dialogues with the trustee, they're even sending me titles of what our community meetings would be, and I haven't solicited that. So are we going to be talking about structure of maybe town halls or listening sessions or dialogues with the trustee? Or I'm just throwing out some of the names that they've sent me. Are we going to be doing any of that? Because this seems like this is going to be very long and drawn out.
The alternative would have been for me to choose a couple of topics and then just.
Oh, no, I have no problem with the topics. I'm talking about the structure of when we're going to talk to our communities.
Certainly, I'm open to feedback and suggestions. I just want to, I think it's important to I started with this at the very beginning, that the board of trustees sets the vision, the direction, we talk about the what's, the superintendent does the how, we ask him to do the how. And so I will work with him closely to develop a beautiful product that will allow us all to contribute in a meaningful manner while we're present. If that was the first point of my insight, I can tell you're still thinking about. Yeah, it's kind of registering. So
I'm ruminating.
yeah, no, and that's fine. We're welcome. I mean, I don't know how else to hear.
I guess what, and I appreciate your answer, I do. I guess what I'm thinking about is a part of, that we as trustees, we each have like 7 different districts, but we don't have to have 7 different trustee meetings every month or every other month. We want to collaborate on this. And so if there was nothing really to preclude us as elected officials, that if we wanted to have a town hall or a community meeting or whatever, to do that, in our communities or to ask for guidance on that. So, I mean, that would definitely be something that I would ask for guidance and not just go barreling right ahead on. But what I'm saying here is that we are this is March 1st, believe it or not. And, we're gonna be close to the end of the school year. And we have some very, very strong questions that are being put to us. And I think part of regaining the trust of our community is being able to, at least maybe to a small degree, be able to answer these questions, maybe not completely, and maybe not like everything. Like you said, we have to bite off a small chunk at a time. That's all.
Can I offer some insight? So we are at the beginning of March. I think it's very feasible for us to have a community meeting by the end of March, right? We have a couple of weeks here to put those pieces together and also prepare and provide members enough notice to have them reserved on the calendar, along with any additional training or just heads up, insight that may come before the actual presence. But I would envision, what I hear from my colleagues consistently is that communication is an important part of their role, and as president, that has been my commitment from the very beginning. So this is all preliminary, of course, superintendent's up in person right now, but I'll consult with him once he's back and we'll discuss definitive dates, communicate those pieces. So my goal is for us to have something more naturally too. Thank you. Trustees Amora?
How can we ensure that the superintendent's schedule and their staff schedule will be flexible enough for our communities to attend these meetings?
Do you have specific requests, maybe that other colleagues will also have in terms of like evening or weekend meetings?
Weekends, evenings, we're thinking, specifically Saturday. Saturday is usually, I think about the library, it's usually the busiest in the library. Because folks are already there and present and they're spending time with their kids, right? So I just worry that, yes, our goal is the end of March, but we will get into a conversation and it'll be like, you know what? These weekends are busy, or this Saturday is busy and we can't do it, and it just gets pushed and pushed and pushed back. That's my biggest worry.
That's fair. Thank you for that feedback. I saw some heads nodding and like some yeses when you mentioned Saturdays. Sessions, like that is something that's of interest to all of us, majority to be able to offer sessions. I want to just remind the board that we have training in Carson next weekend. The following weekend, we're going to be traveling for the councils, the city schools, and so it just won't be the superintendent, it'll also be depending on our schedule too, right? I'm hoping that we all can squeeze this really important thing into our priority, but I have a commitment. I will make something work. We will make it work, and we won't get it. And my goal is that we, of course, get it as good as we can get it the first time. But we're going to be creating iterations. We are an education system after all, constantly learning, adapting. So look forward to more of that feedback.
Okay. March 25th, last Saturday of the month. Listening session. I don't know.
Yeah, let's see.
I
appreciate your enthusiasm, and if this is an urgent item, this is very important. I wouldn't want to make a decision that, we're today talking about the overall umbrella of the topics that we'd like to discuss. We still have to, I wouldn't want to make a decision about your availability if you weren't here, right? So thank you for that. I will provide more information as soon as we committed. Yes. All right, colleagues, I don't care. I don't see any other names in the queue. Thank you for this lively discussion. Incredibly grateful for your commitment to continued commitment and urgency around this item in the community. All right, we're going to move on with your permission to item 2.02, board committee reports, discussion and possible action on the process of House Trustees report on committee meetings at future work sessions. This is an item that, thank you. Before I continue and discussing this item, is there anyone who has not had a chance to complete their yellow public speaker card? Not, please do so now. Otherwise, I won't be able to address the board. It looks like we have several cards that have already been submitted, right? Or maybe other items. Great. Wonderful. So moving on to, I'd love to colleagues to share with you what I'm thinking, and then I'd love your feedback, and then an action can be taken. Essentially, this item, perfect, thank you for bringing that up. I put that up on the screen. This item came as a result of a colleague's suggestion. Thank you, Trustee Cavazos, for that feedback very early on last year. It appears that this has been done before in the past. There have been spaces where board members who serve on committees have the opportunity to share out have a specific set amount of time to share out what they're learning or insights that may be helpful about the board. Many of these boards, see some of these items, these specific committees, some of their items come before the board. I think in developing some sort of structure here when it comes to timing, and also like when we should expect to do some sort of some report. I thought about quarters, but I'm open to months. I'm open to at every board meeting. We may not always have, something to report on in a specific quarter. Just know that I'm open to any and all iterations of reporting structure for all of us. This document here at the very top, the first page, includes all of our committees and our colleagues who are appointed. And then if you scroll down a little bit further in this document, you'll see that there is, I kind of added a couple of pieces further down to the second page. Yep. A process that's focused on a quarterly opportunity to provide insight on what's happening in your specific committees. And I know, again, based on the committees and the list of committees, not everyone has to work around every quarter. I also just, for parameters purposes, I want us to be mindful of OML, which I talked about earlier, and how some of the items like bond and AZAC, that they come back to our board for votes, and just want to make sure that we stay away from OML liability. All right, Trustee Cavazos, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam President. I like what you have up here on screen, except that I was gonna suggest 5 minutes. I was gonna suggest 5 minutes instead of 5 to 10 minutes for a report. And I also was thinking that, that most of us are on probably 2 committees, probably. So sometimes I might have like several things that will happen, but they don't all need to be reported, monthly. So I like your idea of possibly quarterly reports. And if there is something that if a trustee does not have anything to report, then they just submit to you that nothing to report at this time, and we save even more time on the board meetings. I also wanted to point out, this is my fault, I did not submit this to you, but if you want to scroll back to our listed committees right there, where we're all on. There it is. On mine right there, I neglected, and I to hear from NIAA on this, that my term ends on 6/23, but that I am eligible for an additional 3-year term. And so since I was just reelected to a 4-year term, I would be eligible for that 3-year term. And so I just, we need to put on there that I am eligible for reappointment. Other than that, I like your suggestion. It's just, I was thinking more along the lines of 5 minutes, but my colleagues might feel differently.
Thank you for that feedback, Trustee Cavazos. Trustee Guzman?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I'm new here. Come on in, yep.
Thank you, Madam President. So I think 10 minutes is a really long time. I will be very open and honest about that. Only because, as you stated, we have to really tiptoe around OML, and the thing is that a lot of, at least when I sat on bond oversight, a lot of what decisions were made did come back, right? So when looking at the structure of the report, I would like to see information based, not based on, you know, what schools are going to change, but based on how many schools, right? Because when the schools, if they are approved by my committee, it will come back to the board, right? So, I mean, we have to be really kind of careful. So building the structure of what those reports would look like to stay away from open meeting law violations would be really helpful. NASB is not like that, but those committees that actually have to come back, like it just, to me, having that structure would be very helpful. So I just think that that's something that we really need to work on, so that we so that when we give our update, we're not saying, and we're gonna get to vote on this. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So I feel that that's really important. Maybe working together with council to ensure that our committee reports are appropriate. Not that we can't give our own input, but that we're not doing anything that's unlawful.
That's great feedback. Thank you for that. So I hear so far consensus of 5 minutes, or just an agreement that they're
It should be 2 to 5 minutes.
2 to 5. 2 to 5 minutes. Got it. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And the quarterly seems to be okay. And working with council may be an important component to ensure that we're to stay focused on which many potential loss. Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. I was gonna do 3 to 6, but I'll do 2 to 5 minutes. Works for me. I like the point that Trustee Guzman made. I think that it's important to get feedback from this work. I'm wondering if there's any benefit. I've definitely heard from my committee members that one of the things that they feel is lacking with the committee structure, they don't really have an opportunity to directly engage with the board until the decision is made. So maybe an alternative structure is something like, if it is a board appoint, like a board committee, maybe there's a different structure for that. Maybe one of the community members who actually chairs the committee comes forward. Maybe it's quarterly. Maybe there's a a specific update that we ask, depending on what the work is that the committee's going to do. I feel like those committee members would actually appreciate the opportunity to engage at the front end before they come back to the back end. So they would say, this is going to be what our work looks like this year, and then we're not surprised when they get here. So I think maybe we can definitely like notice that as like a different item and get around some of those OML problems. Not get around it, but honor our requirement under open meeting law.
Thank you. Thank you. 2 to 5 minutes seems to be a good place that we're landing on. And so here's some audibles in terms of the board committee that will what we call them board committees. Board committees, having potentially some, the chair be invited to specific meetings that are being noticed. Trustees Aurora?
So I'm only on one committee that I share with my colleagues. So just adding that we'll probably get an update before it actually comes to a meeting, and I don't want to be surprised either.
Appreciate that, Trustees Moran. Thank you for your service on the NASB board. It's an important board. Thank you. Trustee Williams, you're in the air. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to the conversation?
Yeah, no, I'm with everybody else. I felt like when they said 10 minutes, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a long time. So 2 to 5 minutes, I feel like it's good. I have multiple committee assignments and I'm fine with all of them, so.
Great. Council, do you have any insight for us that you want us to keep in mind as we're developing this particular piece?
No, just as Trustee Bismarck suggested, I'll be more than happy to work with you guys.
Great.
And drafting those reports.
Do we have any public comment? We have one public comment, and then we technically don't need a motion for this. This is more of an operational piece for us. If you're comfortable with that, colleagues, I hear you loud and clear and working with council to ensure that we have a structure in place to that we honor the letter of the law, and that there's some support generally for the board committee chair members to also on a quarterly basis, schedule and notice. Trustee Cavazos.
Just wanted to ask real quickly, the timeline, what do you anticipate the timeline would be on putting this into practice?
Forgive me for that, base number, virgin, like today, tomorrow, nope, yep, the next work session.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Binder, do you have public comment on this item? Please come up.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. On the audit advisory, we are actually currently kind of taking a look at our bylaws. And one of my suggestions that is going to be in my thing was actually providing a written like report. I don't know, quarterly or whatever. Just because there is quite a bit that goes on there on that. But I know no one can answer this, but a thought I'm having is a trustee used to be appointed to that one. But since I've been on it, there has been no trustee that's attended any of our meetings. And AZAC is just its own little creature, right? And I know that this is, just your board committees, but through the last couple of years, there's been some superintendent committees where a lot of stuff goes on behind closed doors that the community is completely shut out of. I know there's been various reasons over the years why we have. And it just kind of randomly gets brought up in other discussions, but I would think that any committee that has to do with any work in our LEA system, the community and the board should be getting quarterly or yearly reports on like their missions and the work that they are completing. I remember very recently when all of a sudden we had a superintendent student committee and everybody's looking around going like we do. And then all of a sudden one exists, but nobody knew about it at the time that it was brought up in the conversation. And then also I have been led to believe that there is a special education committee that is also behind closed doors. I don't know if that is a superintendent one. But as someone who has several special education children, I really think there should be transparency if that committee does exist. Where are they meeting? What are they discussing? As you all know, I'm the vice chair of the Special Education Advisory Committee for the state. We should not be cut out of any conversation, especially when it comes to special education. But as a community, we shouldn't be shut out at all. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Binder. Colleagues, are we in agreement that we don't need a motion for this particular item? All right, I have a directive, I will move forward. Now, we're gonna move on now to item 2.03. This item is to reconsider, forgive me before, this is an action item. Anybody in the public that's not had a moment to the yellow card, this is the time to do so. Submit it, please. We have public cards here already that have been submitted and able to call in advance for this particular item. Thank you for that. This item is 2.03's reconsidering opportunity to reconsider item 3.25 from the August 11th, 2022 meeting Board of Trustees. Discussion on possible action on motion. Reconsider item 3.25, the adoption of the Park County School District Board of Trustees Governance Policy 11. Public comment from the August 11th, 2022. I'm going to turn this over to Trustee Guzman for additional clarification.
Thank you, Madam President. So when this item was voted on August 11th, I asked a clarifying question that if we would review it and see if it is working for both the public and ourselves. Almost every board meeting, it has been brought up that the public comment, the way that public comment is run is not working for the public. I noticed that we are not having students come and give their voice to what we do, and what we do affects them every single day in the classroom. I even did a little ditty on it for some students that I went to see this week for Teach for America, to show them how what I do actually affects them every single day. And so what my thing is that we bring it back and we figure out a way to make public comment work, because currently it is not working for the public. And when I did my research to see what was happening and why we went to the way we did, I noticed that it seemed to be a template from A.J. Cravill. That doesn't mean anything to anyone except those who have gone to the Council of Great City Schools. And although there are some things that he says and the way that we have put our agenda together do work, and I agree with some of the things that he says, I am not sure that for our community that public comment and putting it at the end of an agenda works. So, and also I don't think that not having public comment for things that we are considering, even though they are information items, works either. I think we should hear from the public on everything that we consider, because the public votes for us. So that's my thought. That's the reason why I brought it back. I was the prevailing vote. And so I asked for this item to be brought back.
Thank you for that insight, Trustee William. Excuse me, I'm thinking of making sure we don't forget to someone. Thank you for that insight, Trustee Guzman. I want to be clear that this, for our policy, this item must, Trustee Guzman requested this item. I did blind this item, and as a result, in order for it to be brought up, it has to brought up in this capacity here in front of that board meeting. The point of reconsidering an item allows us to, if this motion passes, to bring this policy back to the board for the evaluation. This item specifically is essentially open it, and the only, for our policy, the only person who can do that is the individual on the career side. Thank you, Trustee. Thank you, Trustee Guzman. I see. Yes, and thank you. I will start with our colleagues here in a second. the one thing I want to be clear about is that the way that meeting on August 11th and the way that we've structured our agenda is aligned with balanced governance. Balanced governance, we received balanced governance training by Dr. Alsbury, not by AJ Cargill, is point of reference for us. My colleagues, I don't see anybody in the queue right now, but I do. Yes, trustee Cavazos and then trustee Brooks.
Thank you, Madam President. I think trustee Brooks was actually first. I was just wondering, are we gonna go ahead and decide on have discussion first or workshop?
We typically have a round of discussion before we open it up to public comment, and then we discuss again and take a vote.
Okay, then I'll let her go first. Thank you, and I'll go.
Trustee Brooks.
Thank you. Can I ask just a point of clarification? Are you following, is this item following the appeals process and board policy taking? And is that,
That's correct.
okay, so under the policy, it would be that trustee Guzman states why she'd like to bring it back. You state why it was denied, and the board votes under policy. Is that the format that we're following?
Yes, that's correct. You go back in the queue, please.
No, public comment is still required, but under board policy, the item is to appeal the board president's decision about an item, then trustee Guzman makes a case for why it's important to bring the item back, how it aligns with the board's role. President Garcia Morales chimes in and says why it was denied, and then the board votes on whether or not we're gonna reconsider the item.
Trustee Brooks, just a clarity that board can have a discussion on this particular item.
All right, I don't think that you can prevent them from having a discussion. I'm just telling you what the policy is.
Thank you for that refresh. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you for that point of clarification. I would just like to state right now for the record that I appreciate trustee Guzman being on the prevailing side, bringing this back on the original meeting and on this policy. I voted no. So I'm very appreciative of someone on the prevailing side bringing this back, and I'll tell you why. I agree about the students. Meeting after meeting, we have all these seats that, well, we don't tonight, but on regular board meetings, we have these seats that are reserved for students. We do not have students showing up anymore. And although our meetings have gotten appreciably shorter, students have very early times, educators, parents with children. And that is one point that I am in full support of. And the other thing is that we need to prioritize that these meetings are business meetings, but we work for the community and they have a right to be able to do public comment. If we are strangling that, suppressing any opportunity for them to do that, I believe our present policy is doing just that, then we need to take a good hard look at that and see if that possibly by voting to rescind that maybe we can find a compromise to tweak it and to make it better. Doesn't mean that, you know, we have to go back exactly to that, but that we try to find a better way to do this. And so I'm in full support of trustee Guzman's motion to rescind. Motion to bring this back for rescind vote, sorry.
Reconsider. Thank you so much, trustee Cavazos. No, I'm gonna move forward with my explanation and the reason why I did deny this item. First, this item was brought to me, the request to bring it to a board meeting. I declined it because per our policy, the agenda item should align with the board vision and district mission, strategic goals or annual goals. The agenda item should align with the scope of the board and focus on progress monitoring of district goals and not issues of management and operations. I had mentioned that I would bring this item before a work session and you know, made that commitment Additionally, until recently, as a matter of fact, this morning, that was the primary reason why I chose to decline that item to be brought before a regular board meeting. I did offer to bring it to a work session, which is where we are today. We're here today, obviously, to hear about this item being reconsidered, but I want to be clear that we are not taking anyone's right away to provide public comment, and those comments have been shared publicly via here on the dais and written via media. And the original request was to bring this item to reconsider, but it seems like it's taking legs on its own, accusing the district, potentially accusing us of not giving constituents come to board meetings voices. And I just want to be mindful of the fact that that is not accurate. There is otherwise we would be, and I also want to be mindful of the fact that council has advised us to ensure that we do not discriminate against any population or provide any preferences, excuse me, not discriminate, provide any preferences to ensure that we are aligned with all the law, NRS specifically, that gives us this guidance. So I'm not going to say anything further. I think I've captured those particular pieces, and I've heard loud and clear the reasons why this was particularly interested in bringing back. I'm going to move on to public comment. Forgive me. I want to make sure I don't miss Trustee Williams, since I know it's not easy to just jump in the
Yeah. Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I just like to say, like, I understand where people think that we may be taking their rights away or things like that, but I want to reiterate that we double check the laws every single time on this item was originally brought forward. We're not suppressing anybody's speech. They can still get public comment, but what we did is we turned our 7-hour meetings into 2-hour efficient, effective business meetings. Therefore, by allowing students to actually come and not have to sit until 11 or midnight on a school night. So while I understand people wanting to bring it back, I'm still just not quite sure where the actual hang up is. I think what this actually did is it prevented constituents, I would say a certain select group of constituents that would come and speak for 10 hours. Sorry, I apologize, 10 minutes per time, per item, and actually drug our meetings out longer, thereby not allowing other people to actually speak at our meetings. So those would be my only comments, I would say.
Thank you, Trustee Williams. I move on to public comment. Followed by Ms. on Tampa, Carolina Colson, and then Vicki Craig.
I'm Tampa speaking as an individual. I don't know, I wanted to leave, I wanted to walk out, I wanted to burst into tears listening to you discuss this. I am definitely in favor of bringing back the item for reconsideration, because I really do believe that this item was brought forth to just silence a few people and to shorten the meetings. And I'm not going to mention any names, but I think everybody who comes to those meetings knows. I see it definitely as a way to silence the public, because I have felt silenced for the first time in 10 years. So sitting from this side, you have definitely silenced me with your new policies. First of all, we were allowed to talk about items that were being considered. We were allowed to give public comment. And I work in the school district. I had to get up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's just as difficult for me to stay up late and sit here in a freezing cold room, not being able to eat or drink anything for 5 hours. So I do believe the 2 public comment periods are what should be done. But I do see, and after listening to the comments, believe that there are those of you who want to stop us from talking. And that makes me very upset. You talk about community engagement, that you want the community involved, yet you're doing a lot of things that are exactly the opposite of what you need to be doing. I think that the town halls and community meetings are excellent, but they should be instituted. We've been talking about those for years. So yes, we need to get moving on those. And they need to be times when all the different people in Las Vegas who have children and who work in the district can come and be involved. It is so difficult to be involved in this district. And then you talk about different things about you don't bring certain types of things to these meetings, go up the chain of command. Well, what if the chain of command is the problem? And there isn't anywhere else to go. So there needs to be a real careful, and there's such a thing as the law and the spirit of the law. What does it mean to allow the community to be engaged, to be able to speak? And just, I have emotions. I'm a human being. I'm allowed to have emotions. We were created with emotions, just like our children have emotions. We're not supposed to shut our emotions down. We're supposed to use them to gauge our reactions to real life events and circumstances. And these circumstances are not good. So I really ask you strongly to vote to reconsider this, at least to instill a little bit more faith than what we have in you now. Thank you.
Move on to Ms. Prado. Welcome. And after Ms. Prado, we'll have Senator Robertson, DeShonta Marshall.
Good evening, Vicki Cardell, president of NEA of Southern Nevada, and I'm a reading teacher in Park County School District. I want to approach this from a little different perspective. We are all on the same team. You all are the face of the district that I work for. Let's be honest, during COVID, there was a breakdown of trust from some of our parents, the community, and the board. I'm not even saying it was necessarily anybody's fault. I'm just saying it just is a result of the chaos that we all went through. Whether this is changing the public comment policy is following the law, and I believe Trustee Brooks when she says that that's the law, that is not always the most important thing. I think the most important thing is rebuilding the trust between the district and the public, the district and the community, the district and the parents. And by bringing back the 2 public comment periods, it makes it easier and more accessible for people to come give comments. I was here, I sat through those meetings. It's not always comfortable, and I get it. I also would prefer not to be here till 2 in the morning on a work night. So having the earlier public comment period is very helpful for me because it enables me to be able to say what I need to say and go home and take care of the things I need to take care of in my home and be at work the next week. So I am in favor of bringing it back for reconsideration. I think if we're thinking about what can the board do to rebuild public trust, I think this would be a huge step forward to get people coming back to meetings. As you know, people don't even come anymore. I can't even get the educators to want to come speak in meetings. They feel like you don't listen and that you don't want to hear from them. So let's change that perspective. Let's do things differently so that we can let them know that we do want to hear from everyone who is concerned. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ms. Prado. After dinner, we'll have DeShonta Marshall.
Thank you, President Garcia Morales, trustees. My name is Jenna Robertson for the record. I'm a mom of 4 current CCSD students and 1 recent graduate, and I have come to a few board meetings and made a few public comments over the years about agenda items, non-agenda items, discussion items, and action items, all with the singular goal of being heard by each of you. And since the changes in public comment have taken place, I feel less heard. Because I often come here to speak about very unpopular topics like our gender diverse kids and LGBTQ kids and our special education kids and our racially diverse kids. And because I have recently served as chair of the Sex Ed Advisory Committee's nominating committee very proudly and effectively, thank you. I am all too aware of the chaos and ugliness some members of the public choose to bring to your public comment periods. It often felt dangerous to come here to your board meetings. It did not feel comfortable. It felt unsafe. It felt threatening at times. Members that would come here to be heard by you felt threatened just to come here. Please stop bringing our kids who want to be involved. I have kids who want to come here and be heard by you, and I would not let them come. frankly, I wouldn't even let them watch at home on nights that I was watching at home because I didn't know what they were going to hear on the TV. Okay, sorry, back to my message. But all the changes that were brought about on, this is really important to me. I feel changes had to take place. I feel nobody can deny that something had to be done. However, I think it was an overcorrection. I think that the changes that you guys implemented in August of last year were an overcorrection of the problem. Yes, your meetings are shorter and you have a great new president who creates a very efficient agenda for these meetings, and thank you for that. And congratulations on your 55-minute meetings, that's great. But at what cost? You have a public that doesn't trust you. You have a public that doesn't feel heard. And I think that it's a simple, I don't envy your job ever. I don't want to be on the dais. I think what you do is hard. I think the decisions you make are important and hard. I believe all it would take to earn some trust back about these public comments is maybe 20 extra minutes of your night. Maybe 20 minutes at the beginning of this meeting, which wouldn't even be 20 minutes because some of the people you're hearing at the end, you wouldn't have to hear from at the end. Also, I want to talk about something that hasn't been addressed today is the blocking of faces for people at home. You might not think it's, engagement to have people at home watching these meetings, but I can't make it to these meetings all the time and I watch every time. I watch at home, I usually watch live, sometimes not live. And I would like to point out that you have ASL interpreters here. We don't block their faces. Why? Because facial expressions are an important part of communication. The deaf community needs to see their faces. Thank you. Please make changes. Thank you.
Swedish Marshall here, but no.
After Jamie, Anna Binder. Here's Jim Filiani. Cesolario. Olorio. Brandon Summers.
I thought today was Tuesday until about 1 p.m. So I forgot to write my comments ahead of time. So we're just gonna minimum effort, and go off a little bit book here. So Jamie Kitchen, to be for the record, been a little bit since I've been here, but I was trying to save a little bit of my sanity. I do want to discuss this agenda item about public comments. My priority as an educator has always been my kids. And I think one of the biggest disservices we have done is to take away that student voice that was at the beginning of the meetings. Now, from a personal perspective, I don't really care if I speak at the beginning or the end. If I have something to say, I'm going to say it, right? But our kids deserve that time at the beginning. They deserve to have their voices heard. I have seniors this year, and already the conversation about graduation regalia is coming up. And I know there is a bill going to the assembly to address that. But I have kids who are graduating in 9 weeks who, deserve to be able to voice their opinion. And this is where they get to do that. And we have seen change come from students being able to come and voice their opinion. We need to hear this stuff even when it's hard. We need to hear how a kid feels when they've been pepper sprayed on our campuses. We need to hear how a kid feels when they're a first generation graduate and they're told they cannot wear a semblance of their culture on the biggest stage of their life at that point, right? We need to hear that. I also think, I've been on my school's SOT for 3 years. I don't know why they keep electing me, they do. But we have a student on ours, right? And it's really important to hear that student voice, right? It's really important to hear that parent voice, which is what our SOT gives us. I really wish we had the opportunity to put a student up there with you guys. I don't know if that would be a good idea or a bad idea. It might be a little traumatizing for them, honestly. But we need to hear what the kids are saying. I'll have kids who sit in my room at lunchtime and I just kind of hear what's going on in their lives. And they know what's going on. They know what's going on sometimes more than the adults. And I think that we need to hear that student voice. I think they need to see us when we come and speak. Right, I think it's important that the community knows who the people who are willing to come and speak public comments. I've seen myself splashed all over social media by some not great people, and I'm okay with that because it gets that word out still, right? And I think many people who do speak.
Thank you, Jamie. Reminder.
Can I go last, since I was there last year for every single work session, but there's other people.
I'm using just the submission. You're welcome to yield your time to or yield your position in the queue. Jose Solari.
Oh, can I go at the end or?
It's
is
the
it-
same.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over it. Forgive me, Chris. Chris, and then Jose.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Christian Giuliani, and thank you, you did that perfectly. I appreciate it. I'm here to ask you to reconsider this as well. It needs to be reworked. I think part of what happened in the last, during COVID, brought out some of the good and the worse in some people. And I think some of this was a reaction to somewhat muzzling some people, trying to close your meetings down. But I wanted to read to you. Enacting the open meeting law, the legislature finds and declares that all public bodies exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. It is the intent of the law that their actions be taken openly and that their deliberations be conducted openly. To me, this newest regulation flies in the face of that. I read it as a chilling effect, that you didn't want to hear our voices. That there's even in the sections that look at the guidelines for it are really inappropriate. It's very much a judgmental, and it's not pertinent to this part of needing to be within a policy. So if I look at it says it encourages the public to first address their concerns with the staff member closest to them. You've been talking about some of that. That's not appropriate to the open meeting law policy nor to public comment. And it's seen as possibly not letting you do the job you were elected to do. And I will remind you, you are elected officials. You have a responsibility. And sometimes people see us as, oh, well, that's not my role. And they think you're blocking them. And that's not necessarily your intent. Even as a commissioner, I don't have anything to say about HOAs, right? But I have to still listen to them. I have an obligation and a responsibility to do that. And I think coming back and finding a better balance of what you want to deal with within the public comment period would be more appropriate. I think it's kind of, we tend to hide, not just you all, but around behind the open meeting law. Sometimes it's an excuse to not act, and sometimes it's an excuse to act. And so there has to be a balance that comes in. One thing I think that as you look at your, hopefully if this passes to reconsider it, the student voice needs to be back in there at an earlier time. The comments need to be at the beginning, not making people have to wait till the end. You don't need to wait to or be able to comment only if it's an action item, not just a discussion item. It should be both, because sometimes that's where you get some good dialogue going, or at least some good ideas that come in from your public. Striking the word citizen though was a good idea, and changing it to individual. So there are some pieces in here that should be looked at, but I would urge you strongly to reconsider this, flush it out better, and don't make it look like it's restricting, chilling free speech, because to me, those procedures look like you were telling me to go to the ACLU, which I may do if that doesn't get removed, because it sends the wrong message. It is about the public's opportunity to address an elected official. And that's what the purpose of this policy is for. So I hope you do vote to reconsider. Thank you. And I will come back on that. I didn't put in a card on 202 because I didn't see that on the back side of the agenda. It did allow for some discussion, so I'll bring that up at the end.
Just for clarity, would like to be added to the last section. Okay. Thank you. What's that?
Is this working? Yes, it is. Okay. I see a red light, but my name is Jose Solorio, former school board trustee and members of various boards and committees, all many using the open meeting law. First, I congratulate you all for your elections there, those who won elections, and congratulate Evelyn Garcia Morales as now the president. Well, let me get to my comments on this particular item. I believe public input should be effective, streamlined, and inclusive. But there are various input opportunities. I chose one myself before this meeting started, and trustees have emails. You can email all the trustees at the same time. So anyone in the public who wants to get their message out to a trustee, this is an avenue. There's also written input that you can give in to the trustees, and that's part of the trustees page of the website. So this is where you go to communicate with your particular trustee, all trustees, or public input, written public input. That's another opportunity. I think that the public doesn't know our parameters, I mean, your parameters as a trustee. Some of them believe you're making 200,000 a year, you know? I wish I was when I was on the board, but that wasn't the case. $80 a meeting. And so they don't really realize our what we're able to do. We can listen, but you can listen as trustees, but can you act upon everything somebody brings to you? Not really, but you can direct them in the right direction. And so I believe there should be something written for the public. Okay, if you have an issue with employment, please, these are the avenues to seek, you know, relief, etc. Okay, so I think the public should be more informed on the different avenues available. I think the board in your time should be more focused on students, teachers, support staff, funding for the school district, and the legislative process. Okay, we're in the middle of a legislative session. 2,000 per student, that's being discussed. That should be the forefront of what you're doing. I mean, this is an opportunity in a lifetime to work on that. I want to see you guys working on my behalf. I really do. I don't want to see 7-hour meetings. I just don't. And students shouldn't be forced to attend. If they want to come, they can come. So I have more comments, but I'll include them in an email. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. Brenda Summers, F. Gonzalez for the town binder.
All right, greetings, trustees and President Garcia Morales. On August 11, 2022, the board voted to remove opening public comment. And in my opinion, it was a mistake. And mistakes are human, but it was not an accident. That's the distinction we must make. When we come here to share our concerns and frustrations, we should be heard. And to me, removing the opening public comment tells me that you don't want to hear what constituents have to say. Turning off the video during public comment tells me you don't want others to hear and see what we have to say as well. And discontinuing the Facebook live stream tells me that you don't want the community, the public to be involved or vocal about the issues affecting 300,000 students in our district. And this is a little bit off the cuff, but when the city council passed an ordinance it was a camping ban. This was about 2 years ago. That was an 8-hour business meeting, 8 hours. And I was there as long as I could be, but I had a gig later I had to go to, right? But the fact that people were allowed to show up and speak their voice was important. That the fact that it was 8 hours showed how important and how meaningful that issue was to the community. So yeah, sometimes these meetings do run long, and that's okay. It's just part of the process of being in a democracy. Voting to rescind the changes to governance policy GP11 is a decision that I hope the board chooses to make today. And lastly, please stop sneaking major changes into effect via the consent agenda. I'm getting tired of it. Thank you.
Ed.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Roberta Mitchell-Larson. My name's Ed Gonzalez for the record. I'm the community member of the Hickey Elementary School organizational team. but I'm speaking as an individual, mostly stating that on the record because my chair is here and I don't want to assume that I'm speaking for it and following board policy as well. I spoke in support of the public comment changes, and for the most part, I agree with those changes still. But I do think this item should be reconsidered for a couple of reasons. I've spoken the work session about it. These meetings were crazy. They were insane. We had situations of COVID with people affiliated with Joey Gilbert who came in here and caused chaos. And then people responding to that chaos. It was unsafe. And at home, it was extraordinarily entertaining to watch these meetings on video. The press had a field day with it. I had friends from out of state who would comment, how crazy is Las Vegas? None of that is helpful to the district. None of that is helpful for getting more teachers. We became a laughing stock. And so I understood in the moment of absolute chaos of a board meeting, you guys have to function as a board. And so previous board iterations, and Trustee Brooks may be the only one who remembers some meetings, just typical ones, going till 1 or 2 in the morning. I remember speaking in public comment at 2:30 a.m. on a meeting like this with nothing controversial. And so when we talk about the ability for students to speak, there's no voice in there too. And I don't think anybody's talking about the fact that we have a distrust in the district based on public comment. However, saying that, I believe this item should be reconsidered because I do agree with Trustee Guzman that it should be looked at again. So I will highlight 3 things that I think, or 4 things. 1, we should not look at having 10-minute consent calendar items. No board does that. I think it's ridiculous for me on a consent calendar to say, and I said this before, I agree with an easement from NV Energy and talk 10 minutes about something else. That's abusive. And that lasts for a longer meeting. But I think a couple things that could be changed. 1, we should bring the faces back onto it. It's a different time. People are not screaming in here. 2, I think information items should have public comment. You know, when people complain the meeting is short, I don't feel my voice has ever got lost. If you think my voice is valuable on the board, you listen to me. If you don't, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter on an email. Nothing you can do will change that. There are times where I've actually been at a state board meeting and didn't come here because your meeting ended while that meeting's still going on. Okay, that's a choice I made, but it's not anything major. And if I have something, I can email it to you. But I think it's important to revisit the item because you have 2 new board members, and this was a 4-3 vote. Look at it again. It's not unreasonable. I believe, like I said, there could be tweaks to the policy, but overall, I do not believe there's been some chilling event from this. People still have the ability to speak here. These meetings are extraordinarily short as in the past. I don't think my voice has been lost. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President, members of the board, I don't know how to not repeat what I've said for like the year that you guys have previously changed around, but for I don't know if Monday Adams is still on the phone or not, and I believe Brenda Trustee Samara was listening. There was, with my whole heart, ways to go about shortening our meetings without even changing public comment. I think that Trustee Cavazos, when she was president, was failed support from people that should have supported her more. As you know, I sat through all those meetings too, even if I had to run home and make dinner and come right back. I've missed more meetings recently because I've been ill than I have in almost 4.5, 5 years. When we support our leadership, right, we can accomplish a lot of really great things. It's not fair that I think the way that I said this before is if by chance I'm listening in, and you guys know a lot of the time when parents come here, what's the first thing that happens when they leave? I go out, I give them Mr. Caruso's email, or Mr. Caruso comes out, or someone else does, right? Someone else in the South comes out to help the people that come here. But a lot of the time people feel they come here to give public comment because at their school site, they're not being heard. And then they get to their principal and the principal isn't doing anything for them. Sometimes I see that happen a lot, but what do? I give them Mr. Caruso's email, right? You guys have a beautiful complaint system or whatever that is. It's a ticket. something gets open, gets routed to the right people. And I can't tell you how many messages I get back from the community that say, because I asked them, you know, let me know, please. I want to make sure that you're happy, you're resolved. All those messages, they write back, thank you so much, it was taken care of. You know, so I agree on in 2.01, what you guys are talking about and making sure that there is like this clear line, but ultimately, I agree with trustees Amara, we have a lack of full parental participation in our schools. And I said it here before, in schools that I volunteer in, I've had to stop and go buy kids shoes. Because when they showed up to school, they didn't even have shoes. So we could move on to reading week or learning. And how do you do that? You show their faces when they come to talk to you.
So we have the public comments. Trustee Brooks.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the concerns that have been raised by the public. I just want to convey why these changes were made and explain to the public that they weren't made to shorten meetings or to be convenient to board members. We're going to be here all night regardless. So whether you speak at the beginning or you speak at the end, we're going to be here until you're done speaking. That's just the way it works. The changes that some people have said that they would like to revert back are things that they were legally advised against and will not be reverted back to begin with. Anyone who's ever chaired a school board meeting or any meeting of any government entity, I would imagine, knows that it is a powder keg. And sometimes it's a powder keg for absolutely no reason and beyond your control. So I want to reflect back on the meeting that happened last week. It could have been a powder keg. There was a controversial topic. People came out, people were unhappy, but they sat through the meeting. They gave their public comment. We listened respectfully. There was no fighting. There was no bickering. There was no name calling. So either this public comment policy is either really good at maintaining potentially volatile situations, or President Garcia Morales is the best president in the history of CCSD. And you know what? It could be both. But this policy, I definitely would have liked to have a policy that helped me maintain order and keep things under control, because things can get very, very heated. People all love their children and they deserve to be heard. And these changes aren't to be a convenience to us, it's to be fair. It's to be fair to everybody who comes to the meeting so that they have an equal opportunity to have their voice heard. So the changes that you want to implement about students speaking first, that was actually legally advised against. Creating a situation where two public comment periods are divided and some people get to go first and some go last, that is just not equitable. So I'm not going to support these. I appreciate you highlighting the need to continue to engage the community, and there are lots of ways to do it that will still allow us to maintain a functional board meeting.
Brooks, this time I'm looking for a motion. Take this one.
Thank you. I move to reconsider item 3.25 from the August 11th, 2022 meetings of the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Devassos. Thank you, Madam President. I would like to second Trustee Guzman's motion. Thank you, colleagues. We have a motion by Trustee Guzman, second by Trustee Devassos. Colleagues, please cast your votes. Trustee Williams.
Nay.
Please reset that. Sorry, colleagues, I need to. We need to redo this. All right. The motion. Mr. Russell, why are we resetting this? There is a motion on the floor. Forgive me, there was an error. Item 2.03, item to reconsider, item 3.25 from the August 11th meeting. Motion by trustee Guzman, second by trustee Lovisa. We're gonna go to the audio of the people here on the boardroom, and then we'll go up. So.
The public saying the sound is out, they can't hear.
And you already passed, declared it passed.
Can't go recount after that.
I'm sorry, I'm not gonna engage with the audience. I appreciate that. Can I please request a vote? Thank you. All right, please cast your vote. Trustee Williams.
Nay.
Motion not pass. Trustee Williams, who's not able to submit her vote. He's also. John, could you please?
I'm sorry, Madam President, are you able to hear me?
We are. Thank you, Trustee Williams.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're okay. There's just some technical difficulty here. Sure. This one, can bring the vote back again. I mean, not the vote, but the results of the vote. Which result? Yes. Thank you, colleagues. Okay, so there is no majority. The document, the page said that it passed, however, we was not actually going to count Mr. Williams. Votes, that is to be a.
Well, let's express.
Yes.
Okay, I got that on video too.
Twice. You go talk to the AG.
Trustee Brooks.
Thank you. I'm gonna have council weigh in until the vote is announced by the board president and is not official. Could you please weigh in?
You said pass. You said the words PASSED.
Until this item is closed, I'm gonna have board council weigh in because I'm actually not board council, so.
The audio keeps cutting out.
Okay.
Can you hear us now, council?
I can hear you now, but I couldn't hear most of that discussion. The audio kept cutting out.
We're gonna ask the audience to please withhold the remarks. Trustee Brooks, can you please restate your piece?
Thank you. In times past, if members mistakenly voted another way, we were able to revote in the same item. And what happened was, I believe, I'm not going to speak for.
I'm happy to explain. Thank you so much. I am on autopilot right now, and forgive me, I was in the middle of trying to coordinate Trustee Williams, myself, and everything on here. So I made an error.
Parts of you are still cutting out.
Thank you, council. We hear you. Allow me, I know that I'm still explaining myself. Give me one moment. Trustee Brooks.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, Trustee Brooks.
Okay. So the issue was that when the vote was called, President Garcia Morales made a mistake on her vote and then called for a revote. She revoted, and then there was a glitch on the screen that actually said the motion passed, even though a majority was not met.
So it's purely a technical glitch.
No.
The second one also said pass, and it was only a vote of 3. So
all saw it. We all saw it.
Excuse me, the item is not
Just
closed.
To clarify,
Yes,
just to clear up the record, let's have you guys just take an oral vote, all of you, even if you're present in the boardroom.
okay.
Thank you, council. I want to acknowledge that there are colleagues who are also on the queue. We have an item. Have an item that's open. Council has asked us to take an oral vote. I'm going to go down from right to left and then go up to Trustee Williams in the queue. Trustee Guzman,
I vote yes.
Trustee Cavazos,
Yes.
and next, Nay. Trustee Brooks,
Nay.
Trustee Zamora. Forgive me. To get you on mic. Trustee Brooks, can you turn off your mic, please? Same thing, Trustee, pretty much also your mic. Trustee Zamora,
Yes.
Trustee Cavazos.
I already voted yes.
Oh, there is it.
Unless you want to count me as two, then I can do it.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you. Am I turning on your mic, please? Oh. I appreciate it. Trustee Williams.
Nay.
Thank you, Trustee Williams. Colleagues, we have 3 yeses and 3 nays. We do not have a majority. A majority has to have a yes in order, it has to be a majority yes vote in order to open and reconsider this item.
Even though the sign said yeah.
I'm really sorry, colleagues. As those of us who have served in this position know that it is stressful to have to navigate the various aspects of this particular screen and will also be attentive to your colleagues. So I appreciate you guys in that direction to ask for this piece to be redone, and I appreciate your patience. Yes, Trustee Cavazos, are you in the queue?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to clarify again, I just had a question that we have one trustee who is not here tonight, so a tie vote, which is what we have right here, 3-3. Is not a majority vote. We have some people asking, is that, why is that? And that is just the way that it is. I just wanted to clarify that for the public, that 3-3 is not a majority.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. I appreciate that. You're absolutely correct. In order for a motion to pass, we have to have a majority vote and majority votes in favor of said item or against said item. And at this time, we have a tie, so that means that there is no majority. And that means that this motion does not pass.
It still gets her way.
All right, colleagues. We're going to move on to item 3.01. The upcoming meeting of the Board of Trustees. Next meeting is Thursday, March 9th at 5 p.m. here in the boardroom. We're going to move on to public comment 4.01. We're going to begin with the individuals who signed up in advance. Before we continue on, I get to for yellow cards in the event not submitted that. With your yellow card for public comments. If not done that, please do so now. Let's start with the individuals who began in advance. Oh, Chris, forgive me, I've already added you to that hearing. We're gonna start with Sean Navarro, and Autumn Tampa, and James Bates. That's the order. So I don't see Sean, but I do see Hannah and then Mr. Booth. Oh. No. There's someone who signed up in advance. Lisa Watson, Anderson, she called earlier, so she was not available. Not 10. Let's have a forgive me, yes. Tampa speaking as an individual. Please know and realize that your constituents, CCSD employees, CCSD parents, and CCSD children are not in support of many of the changes that have been made over the past several years, nor they are accepting of some of the policies and regulations. I have just previously spoken on the other item about cybersecurity stakeholders, and now I would like to address my other concerns. One of the most serious concerns I have is how our children are being herded into lunchrooms like cattle and being yelled, go, go, go. And then if they forget an item, like a cookie or a ketchup, they are not allowed to go back to get it. I wonder how an adult would feel if they were yelled at to hurry up and then punished if they forgot something. Am I correct in my understanding? Because I was told that this is federal law. So, and I have been trying for months to find the truth to that answer through CCSD people and have not been able to. It was my understanding that we are supposed to service children. We do have the free lunches and breakfasts, but if they're not getting their items, then it's not serving its purpose. I also see much food being thrown away. I would say probably just in one 30-minute lunch, I would say probably 200 food items are being thrown in the trash. We are not having share tables, and I've been told that we can't have share tables because I've got kids asking me, can I have some more food? I'm hungry. So I'm not really sure who's in control of that because I haven't been able to get anything done about that either over the last 5 or 6 months. And I do take very seriously my job of servicing children. I want to be fair to them. I want to make sure that they're treated with respect and kindness, not marched like soldiers and not treated like they are pets. And that's what I see in a lot of CCSD schools. And I have been in many, over 150. And I have seen this ongoing for years, and it has not improved. The climate has not improved at CCSD. I would like to say it has. One of the reasons it hasn't improved, especially for education support professionals, is that we are being taken advantage of to cover everything and anything that isn't covered, especially specialized program teaching assistants. Those positions are not filled. So instructional assistants who are at a lower pay grade, not properly trained, are being put into those positions, and then the contract is being violated because principals are not paying the responsibility clause that they are supposed to pay. So I would like to ask this board to investigate and see, or whoever is supposed to, that the responsibility clause in every part of our ESCA CCSD contract is followed. Also, there's people being told that they have to change their position when they don't even want to. So there's a lot of things that need to be investigated. And I am available for conversations if anybody wants to reach out to me. I've offered that for years and very few have. Thank you. Step up, appreciate it. Mr. Bayless.
Hello, James Bayless for the record. So I just recently got back from the Henderson committee meeting. I was speaking to some people there. Are you aware that they even also agreed with me that harbor letter should be accepted? So considering how much money comes out of here to that organization. So I figure I'd just put that out there. Or something me and my trustee have been speaking about. So with since everybody got to see what you guys said about my son during Fremont Middle School, I would like to address I found his report card for that year. He got all A's and B's. They said pleasant to be around. How can you be a terrorist chasing people around with deadly weapons and you're getting A's and B's and saying pleasant to be around? Does that make sense to you? That's your school system being very inconsistent. They don't obviously know how to, the cops don't know how to do investigations because if they'd have read the man's report card, they would have known that he wasn't a terrorist. So situations with that going on that's what's basically started our whole saga since we've been here. When Daryl Bustamante and Daniel Ibarra and Brian Burl from Fremont Middle School were the two that arrested my son both times. And why I kept addressing Miss Cepeda and why my attitude wasn't the nicest with her because she was openly ignoring it. And then somebody leaned up to her and said my son was lying. You know, the person that seems to not get anything she wants. So the situation is I've now figured out who my general targets are for my lawsuit, because I'm trying to figure a way how to not to go after a system and go after individuals directly. So I've got that long laundry list of names. I'm just curious on the factor is with the public comment like everybody's addressing, the reason why the videos weren't turned off is maybe because of an email I brought that was told Deanna Trzowski that I was bringing a handheld projector to show on the wall and the news cameras of what happened to my son January 10th at basic high school. You know, the meeting I just went to now, they're aware of what happened to my son. So I'm sure y'all are gonna begin a lot of inquiries. So you guys should probably start not ignoring this more, because the more we're ignored, the more I will raise red flags through this town and show everything what this SPED program really does. So I don't think you guys want that, because coming in June, I go to the Judicial Committee in Washington, DC. You know, for the DOJ, for the truancy program part. Yeah. So I'll be addressing them. That's a city lockdown if they come. Have a good one.
Mr. Bayless, Senator Robertson, any to speak? Jenna Robertson for the record. After Ms. Binder got up tonight and was talking about some special ed committee that the CCSD district seems to have, it was brought to her attention that I'm a member of that committee, so she pulled me out to ask about it. She got some text after she mentioned it. I've never heard of a committee. I've never seen a committee. I've had kids and foster kids in your special ed programs for over 10 years. Never heard of a committee. Anna, not on the committee. Friends on Facebook, not on a committee, would love to serve. So if that exists, I would love any of y'all to reach out to me and tell me when I can attend these meetings and when I can be heard about that, because I have some special ed issues that could be addressed. For example, today, did you know that an alert went out to all, I don't know if it was all parents or all parents who have busing, I'm not really sure. An alert went out today to tell us that our door-to-door busing would be 15 to 20 minutes late. I panicked a little bit because in the time it takes my door-to-door busser to get home, I then have to be out the door to get my other kids, right? So it affects me, it matters to me. Door-to-door busing has saved us more than once. However, today we get a late notice. I panicked. Then my door-to-door busser walks in just fine. She's on time, no problem. Okay, got some weird alert, great, perfect. Get out the door, make some snarky comment on Facebook. Turns out everybody, even people that don't have bussers, even people that don't have bussers, got that notification. About 3 hours later, we got an apology. Sorry, didn't mean to send that out. So that affects people. So the problem tonight with this vote is not that a trustee voted in error, not that there was a technical glitch. None of that's the problem. Things happen, we got that. The problem is we don't trust you. We don't trust you. You don't have public trust, and communication from this district at every level, in every department, from special ed to IEP meetings to the buses, to sitting here at this meeting and watching it before our eyes. We don't trust you. That was the problem tonight, not the vote. Thank you. Amy. And Jessica, Pepe, and Tony Bender.
Okay, so, read an article the other day that said 47 schools are going to be losing their Title I status, which is 17% of the schools right now. We've only heard about McCall Elementary and Prep Middle School because they were mentioned in the article. But what we don't know is the other 45 schools that are going to be losing their title status, which is a huge deal because that provides a lot of programs for campuses. And my concern is we have some big schools where there might be like a magnet program within a comprehensive high school. And so some of those students are in a neighborhood that they don't live in. And so they are changing the demographics for the kids who do need those services, and we don't know what schools are being impacted, or at least it's not public knowledge. I believe you guys know, but we do not know. That's going to impact teachers, where they stay, where they go. We don't know the impact that it's going to have on column advancements, because different schools are in different categories. If you have a teacher who is on a 2-year track, and all of a sudden they're being told you're losing this funding, this status, and now you're on a 3-year track, you're going to lose even more teachers. Right? Our retainment is awful. Right? I see all the recruitments, I see the stuff in the airports, I see it on social media. I see we keep coming up with hashtags, but we're not doing anything to keep the teachers. And by not providing that information to us, especially in the midst of transfer season, you are causing a lot of negativity. You are causing a lot of uncertainty about what is going to happen to positions, right? Is a teacher going to have a job at a particular school? Are we going to continue to have programs like communities and schools on our campuses if we suddenly have a title change? We don't know that, right? And keeping your educators and your support staff in the dark is going to continue that exodus. That 1,505 vacancies that are on Talio right now is just going to continue to increase. Or we're going to get some shiny new recruits in who are going to last a year, maybe 2, and peace out, because it's not sustainable. Today we got a culture and climate survey. It's always a good time. And honestly, I'll fill it out when I'm not frustrated. So I don't know when that'll be. But it asks us, do you guys work in the best interest of all students? That's one of the questions. I think you can see from this meeting, we don't. I wonder if the educators are going to respond to that. I don't think this would be great.
Jessica? Packets, Tony Bender, and David Green.
I would like to speak on the unjust firing of Palo Verde baseball coach Dave Ming. The district.
Sorry, I need to state your name.
Jessica Tackett. The district received an anonymous email from a concerned parent. In the email was a link to a video that is a supposed Twitter page of Dave Ming. The anonymous parent that made the video followed 5 of the same people on Twitter that Dave followed. The video scrolls through the likes section of the page, not what has been tweeted. This anonymous parent also sent an email to several CCSD high school baseball coaches with the same link to the video. In that email, Anonymous stated that she is a mother of a student who plays baseball at Palo and accuses Dave of publicly arranging sex with strippers and escorts and posted pornography to his Twitter account. There is no evidence of that in the video. This account tweeted on January 28th, thanks to CCSD for taking action against Dave Ming. Dave's dealing with prostitutes, escorts for sex should keep him away from coaching kids, and attached a link to the video. Then on February 2nd, again, this anonymous parent, concerned parent, tweeted, Coach Ming still at Palo, despite his dealings with prostitutes, escorts for sex, ? Stay tuned. School to make an announcement on 2/3/2023. And again, attach the link to the video. These allegations against Dave are illegal. Neither the anonymous parent or the district reported this to the police. The district thought these allegations were serious enough to fire Dave, but not serious enough to report illegal activity to law enforcement. Why didn't the district office report this to the police? How is this protecting the kids? Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Tony? State your name for the record.
Tony Bender, Sound President, members of the board. I have 2 sons in the school district, both at Palo Verde High School, freshman and a junior. both play baseball and program. I'm here to talk about Coach Meng and how he was fired based on anonymous and based on stuff that was blatantly not true. It's evident to all of us that no one at the district level, there's been a lot of talk about trust here. And this is not for the board, this is towards other members of the district that have made this decision based on zero evidence. There's nothing there that shows that he did any of the things that he has been accused of and the reason that his badge was pulled. And if you take it even further, the bigger problem here is these volunteer coaches are not protected in any way. They basically, an anonymous complaint, one bullying complaint from the coach at Shadow Ridge, and they're gone. There's no corroboration, there's no investigation that goes into this. And I think something needs to be done to protect these volunteer coaches because they're out there giving their time. Coach Meng had been at Palo for 10 years. Has coached youth baseball for even longer than that. But these coaches need to be protected. And I know what's going on. It is a simple process of, well, you know what? They're volunteer coaches and it's just easier to get rid of them as opposed to investigating it, looking into it, and doing something about it. And the problem is that these parents, Anonymous and one parent, Shadow Ridge, they've become emboldened because they're seeing what's happening at Palo Verde. They've seen what's happening at Shadow Ridge. And now, whether you're aware of it or not, the same thing is going on at Desert Oasis High School with another document that has been sent. So something needs to be done to help these coaches. And I'm asking that it is looked into at a higher level, what has gone on with Coach Meng. And the decision needs to be reversed. He needs to be given his badge back and have the ability to coach these kids again. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
And Durango.
David Knight.
Good evening and thanks for your time. Dave Ming, ex-Palo Verde baseball coach. Would like to start off by saying I've always felt in my life that volunteering your time when you can is a big deal. And I'm proud to say that I did that for 10 years. I did that for 10 years, all as an assistant coach. I've listened to all of you guys speak tonight. You don't get in those positions that you're in without being smart people. And I just have a hard time understanding how somebody for 10 years would volunteer their time and be thought of so highly to be given the head coaching job. And in 2 weeks that I posted something artificial or something inconsistent, where for 2.5 years was well documented. I gave those documents to 3 different principals, 21 pages of sequence of events. I've been in leadership for a long time. Do Pepsi, do Synchrony Financial. Is it really leadership walking me off the field in front of all these kids and not giving me 5 minutes to sit down with me? You're getting paid tonight. I did 10 years making a nickel, cutting off work early. I took it very seriously. I upgraded facilities, communicated with my leader when there was an issue. And you know, all of this told, don't retaliate. And I shut my mouth and I kept leading young kids. That's what I did. And in the end, when I needed a leader to stand up and go, whoa, wait a minute. Those 21 pages that I submitted to 3 different principals was not looked at. That is disappointing. That is not leadership to me. And I think our kids deserve better. I think future volunteers in this district that give up 3 hours after school every day deserve better. And these are all the things that these folks are talking about. But I get it. Because I'm way down here. Athletics doesn't mean anything. I heard you talk about mental illness tonight. You know how important athletics is? You know how important it is Got good leaders? 10 years. 10 years in your district, not a peep, nothing. And one anonymous email gets me walked off the baseball field with a final decision that said this. It's in nothing personal, it is in CCSD's best interest to move forward. That's what 10 years of volunteering gives? Are you kidding me? Thanks for your time.
David Gomez, Anna Binder, Brandon Summers. Wait, you're
David Gomez, for the record, Nevada Peace Alliance president, former president of Wake Up, former director, deputy director of LULAC of education, state and federal audience, there's a whole bunch of other things, but I was wasting my time. God forbid that I have intimacy with my wife and somebody send an email and say that I'm in not the best interest of anything. I'm not saying the man did anything, but who's to know who is what, where, when, and why. But you know, these problems that persist is because people don't know how to do their job. I'm gonna tell you why they don't know their job. Now, I'm not speaking at that capacity, so I'm speaking at Nevada Peace Alliance, but I am the bridge commissioner for Clark County School District. You guys don't even know that. You know why you don't know that? Because you don't care to know that. And I'm just a ghost in the machine. But nevertheless, 22 years of volunteer work. I've never been paid $1. I've never been paid a penny. I use my own business. I live in the hood. I choose to live in the hood. Why? Because a lot of people are afraid to go there. They're afraid. They don't want to come there. They don't want to come hang out. They don't want to come and talk. They don't want to have these conversations. So who has to stand there? Who has to stand in the gap like God has called us to? Me. Why? Being in an elected position doesn't mean that you can hide behind a closed door. I do not hide. What are you afraid of? You watched a man walk, get torn from one end to the other end by the community, and never did he run. That Black community handed his butt to him. He didn't run. He stood there and listened. He says, listen, these people are passionate. They are very passionate. So, you know, you took over for Dr. Young. I know how they're talking to you. You're part of it too, but the others. And you know what? I'm tired of seeing what I'm seeing because I'm handling messaging reports. I'm handling parents with issues. I'm handling staff with zoning issues. Now that we got one thing fixed, closer, whatever the case might be, I don't know what the heck. But nevertheless, there's always some kind of way to tell the public to be quiet. I'm listening. I don't care about no CCSD bridge commissioner position that they gave me and they inaugurated me and gave me a certificate and everything else. I care about it because I help the people. I don't care about it because of anybody up there or any admin or staff or anybody. I care about it because of the people. And you better remember that because I have more tenure here than you guys. And I've been fighting a very long time. And I know how to teach people how to fight. And I know how to do it very well.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Binder. Followed by Brandon Summers.
Go with it.
Have a seat. Well, and other people who don't come to, it's a frequent attendance. Brandon Summers.
Okay, Brandon Summers for the record. This is gonna be hard to do in 3 minutes, but I'm gonna try my best. I'm definitely bummed out by the board not moving forward with rescinding the changes to governance policy 11, namely the removal of opening public comment. But it's even more sad that with the addition of 2 new board members, we still have a divided school board. I wish you knew how much faith have been lost in the district and in the board. And it's troubling that you're not moving in a direction to regain that trust. However, you can still do something about hiding our faces when we're talking right now. I know I have my mask off, you can't see me at home. All right, now moving on to substitute pay structure. It's been long overdue. There's been changes made the last 2 years. It's incremental, it's appreciated, and it's great. There's like some advisory committee for substitute teachers that I don't know any of these subs, never seen them, never heard of them. I'm not on it, people that I know who are passionate about this are not on it, it's neither here nor there. But structure needs to be adjusted. The pay needs to go up. You need to consider PTO, you need to consider health insurance, you need to consider PERS, especially for vacancy subs. They are there just like licensed teachers, doing all the work of licensed teachers. I've been in the capacity of a vacancy sub and a day-to-day. The reason I won't go back to vacancy, and I get asked all the time, I will not do it because I will not be exploited and not get health insurance and PTO and PERS. Not gonna do it ever again. There's still a critical staffing shortage, despite what the news has lost interest in reporting on that. I go to these schools all the time and they are so short on teachers. It's scary that they're even functioning. So please, give this another look. The business cards are not gonna fix it. The billboards in the airport are not gonna fix it. You have to change the pay structure. You have to show veteran teachers that you appreciate the work that they do. You can't just churn and burn new teachers from the Midwest and from California. It's not gonna be a sustainable solution. Okay, lastly is gonna be the hard one. You may only know me as a substitute teacher, but I've also been on the receiving end of police violence. In my former life, I played violin on the Strip, the Vegas Strip for tips, and it was a good and simple life playing violin, and it gave me a lot of joy. But in 2018, police officer decided that they didn't like what I was doing, recorded their misconduct, and they arrested me for it. Put me in handcuffs, took my phone away, took my violin away, put it in an evidence vault. I settled with them recently, but that's not really what's important to me. It's really about how the police treat people. This Durango High School student, it's just despicable that you can throw a kid to the ground like that. And we still need some more answers. Now it's almost a month later. I need to see that body cam footage. Thank you.
Christian Kilian. Followed by Evan Bayless. Thank you, Christian Kiliani. After sitting through this, I wasn't planning on this part of it, but I'm disappointed that 2.03 had to be on a work session, not even on a regular agenda. If you're really going to talk about public comment and reconsideration, it should have been on a regular agenda. But I think you said at the beginning of the meeting, but it didn't follow the board's goals. Well, you all seem to hide behind the OML on a regular basis, so I don't know what the discussion really was or the decision that was made. And I understand making mistakes, but you called for the vote and you said that it passed. You made a mistake, and that's fine. You should have just said, I made a mistake, I want to reconsider. And you didn't do that. You made it look like a shuffle, and everybody then adds to the frustration that's here. I've been watching you two, the president and vice chair, passing notes all board meeting. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? Is it rude? Is it distracting? Are you telling each other how to vote? It's inappropriate to see just sitting out here in this audience as far as that's concerned. Trust is earned. And it's caused by your actions. To not even allow your colleague, out of respect, to have the item reconsidered and have a work group was just, why would you have to go through that? It's all about power at this point in time. And it's not illegal to allow students or parents with children to come to the beginning of a meeting. It's called making accommodations. And if some attorney told you that, they should be fired. Now back to the community engagement. There's a few things that as I was sitting in the audience, all 7 districts of yours are unique. You are elected by those individuals. You should have and employ that diversity and celebrate that diversity. That means you have an obligation to meet regularly with your constituents, with your teachers, with your school principals, and not the superintendent. You don't have to go through him on everything, or her if it was a her. So back to your little sheet that you were typing on, I just want to restate. One of them was teachers shouldn't be supplementing curriculum with their materials, I think is really what you were speaking of, Trustee Guzman. So supplementing was the issue there. Accountability metrics. There are no outcomes. Look at your own annual accountability report, let alone the state. Everything's a list of numbers. It doesn't tell you what you do to black and brown kids that are suspended on a regular basis, despite the percentage that they actually go to school here. You can cure your standing committees on your board, and I thought that was a good idea. But on the county for years, we've been doing it for 12 years. I added an agenda item on at every board meeting. It says emerging issues, and every commissioner can bring up something on emerging issues. And finally, on your last report on the second page, it said OML prevents discussion of anything that may come before the board. No, it does not. Thank you.
Followed by Ed Gonzalez and then Anna Bender.
Hello, my name is Ian Bayless for the record. Two things I'd like to go off. One is about the baseball coach. If he did do that or if he didn't, that's his own private time. If he wants to do that, just let the man be. It's not like he's over there doing it in front of the kids or nothing. If that's what the man wants to do, just let him do it. The second thing is, how are you guys gonna let the cop that over at Durango High School body slam that kid like that just for him recording? That's just messed up. Like, how would you feel if it was one of your guys? You guys would be mad. You guys would be upset. That kid does not deserve it. The second thing is, how would you guys feel if a random cop just came up to you guys and slammed you guys on the floor for just recording something that you know that was messed up and bad? But at the end of the day, the cop that did that, he deserves to be in cuffs. He deserves to be in cuffs. He deserves to be in jail. Because that same officer that slammed that kid is the one that put me in jail twice for my terroristic threat that I did not make, and for my assault with a deadly weapon that I did not do. Both of those cases got dismissed. For the officer to do that to a black kid, that's just messed up. Because at the end of the day, that's somebody's child. That's somebody's baby. For him to put his hands on the child like that, especially to slam him to the floor and put his knee on the back of his neck like that, that's just another type of assault that should not be happening. Because what's going to end up happening is there's going to be another riot that's going to happen over black people. And I'm pretty sure you guys don't want that to happen at your guys' school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Gonzalez. And Anna Bender.
Thank you once again, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Brenda Larson Mitchell. For the record, my name is Ed Gonzalez. This week is Nevada Reading Week, and I don't think I've heard anybody talk about that. And so if you've seen, thank you, Ms. Binder. If you've seen, at least my social media over at Hickey Elementary, we made an effort this year to invite as many people as we can have on campus. And I apologize, Trustee Brenda Zamora, I went alphabetically, I did not make it to Z. And so we limited to the point of where it was manageable. But the reason I emphasize that is that we should invite people, the community, into it, because some of the questions that you had on community engagement, the questions they're asking are very similar questions that the community asked. Some of them are old myths from the past about how things are done. You know, they ask the things like, where are your textbooks and things like that, where we've moved on to it. But we made a concentrated effort because many people in the community don't get asked to read. In fact, I'll say this jokingly, but there are a couple members in the audience right now who will read at Hickey later in this week. I don't want to mention any names. And I am generally surprised. I'll give you a good example. Glenn Christensen, who we asked this morning, didn't get asked. And he didn't get asked after I did. I beat someone to it, but those are the type of people. There are community leaders, there are business leaders, there are average parents. who want to be involved, and the easiest step for schools to do is invite them on campus and read to kids. The kids love it. It's good for the mental behavioral health. It's great for them to somebody read to them. And honestly, the joke that I make a lot, it's good for the teachers to get a 15-minute break at time. And so, you know, and based on the social media, there are people who we invited who we didn't hear back from. And I get messages like, hey, can I still read? And it's a challenge because, you know, how hard is it go knock on a teacher when you go to the door? And if any of you guys have taught, if I said, hey, can you have somebody read here in half an hour? Are you gonna be okay? And no one's gonna say no. But the reason I want to talk about that is this board gets a lot of criticism saying we don't talk about education, we talk about stuff, but we didn't, in this audience, haven't talked much of anything about it. And so I'm gonna make a request, Madam President. I do not know if it's legal because of open meeting law. But I think when you adjourn, you should adjourn on behalf of Nevada Reading Week and all the teachers and especially the librarians. I do not know how librarians organize this. I helped get people, it took me a solid week of actually just doing that. I can't imagine doing it with your job. I've had people in the Department of Ed make fun of me that I don't have the best system and librarians are so well organized they can do it. But if we can't do it in official motion because of open meeting law, we can do it in the spirit and thank the librarians. Dr. Susan's birthday is tomorrow for Nevada Reading Week. So I know I got 20 seconds and I feel like I should take all those 20 seconds because I get 3 minutes. But we should do it because at the end of the day, we want to honor the people in schools, whether it's teachers, staff, support staff, administration, because they work hard, just like honestly you work hard. No one runs for the school board for the honor. It's tough. Thank you.
Hang on, I'm stuck. No, please don't. No, it's stuck. Sorry. Madam President, members of the board, and binder for the record again. So today, the Henderson Education Advisory Committee discussed 117-page municipality report on student achievement, since that word has only been said now twice. I haven't seen our next agenda, but I would really hope that 117-page report would be presented to our board. I don't really know why it didn't go in front of city council. It got shoved into the EAC meeting. And it was presented by someone from the city of Henderson staff, no one from CCSD. So if they had any questions, there's no one there to answer them. And then I did take the liberty of sending that when I saw it on the agenda to all the other municipalities, just to make sure that they were aware of that report. You're welcome. And I also, I think, sent it out for the public. As a co-founder of Let Them Play, this is now the third coach that I've heard of in less than 2 weeks that has been dismissed for very shady causes. As we all know, how much sports impact our student athletes. They're students first, but they're student athletes. I know that as a youth around the time of this happening, I probably was losing my grandparents, lost my father. And if I would have lost my dance coach, I probably would have. Okay, so you guys know, a lot of people in town, I know the impact that coaches have on our student athletes. And I'm gonna make a declaration that Let Them Play Nevada will stand behind any coach that this happens to, because we can still employ a police officer with multiple DUIs who gets caught on our school campus. But we have to terminate a coach who has backup. That's something people or someone said he didn't do. So that's and one we don't even pay. The other one makes a really nice salary. So I don't know, but I'll get to the bottom of all of that, and I would love to hold a rally for them. I don't know. I just, there's so much, guys. And so when you took away 10 minutes and then you shove it into 3, when I look at an agenda, right, I'm a 10-minute speaker, right? But I can validly talk about the agenda items that I sign up for, and they're all important. And you can't get it in 3 minutes.
Thank you to members who came out and spoke to do public comments. Be reminder that this is another reading week, grateful for consideration, and certainly appreciate all of our educators, licensed professionals, staff employees, administrators who make concerted efforts to ensure students have the best experience for the student. At this time, colleagues, I'm seeking a motion for adjournment. Those are the offers.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Trustee Galapagos. Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. I will second.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Galapagos and a second by Trustee Zamora. Please cast your vote. Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0. The time is 6:42. Thank you. Have a great